that says that the VSBA does not support the creation of charter schools, that talks about the use of public funds in private schools. So this is not intended to make it easier to create charters. Again, if that word of a bill were to be proposed about that, again, the VSBA would not be in favor of it.
Point of order. I'd like to respond to that. The board or other people.
No, I'm sorry. That's not a point of order issue.
You're creating dialogue. You're responding rather than having us all talk. You want to have us all talk, have us all talk.
Very
I
good.
didn't say set up charter schools. I said a back door to creating a charter school without having to have a charter.
That's fine. If you don't want to have an answer to, if you're presenting a question and you don't want to have an answer to it, please tell us.
I didn't ask for
Okay. My name's Ron Schneider from Williamstown still, and I am not asking the question here, just to be absolutely clear. I have 4 things I just want to address, and they'll be real quick. 3 of them are more structural, and the last one has more to do with the educational side of it. One is the VSBA mission talks about a collective voice. And the VSBA board in the last couple of years has a very poor record of doing a collective voice. And I think that alone should give people pause to stop and think about how we go about these processes. And maybe there's other processes that are better to, for school boards to be lobbying the legislature with our taxpayer dollars. Second item, there's no need for the VSBA to take a stand on this. It doesn't help for the VSBA to take a stand. It doesn't hurt if it doesn't take a stand. The VSBA will still have its people in the State House to provide information, be advocates for a particular position on this. There is other board-related matters that are much more important that have to do with training and all. I won't go into detail because they don't address specifically the resolution, but they exist, and there are better places for the VSBA to be spending its attention and its money and its efforts. And the last item is, at lunch, we heard from Secretary Holcomb. Talked about was equity. And what this resolution does is encourage disequity. It, instead of saying we're going to be treating across the board districts the same, it says let's pick out some winners and people who can stand out and not be dealing with the who are not going to be able to do some innovation zone or whatever you want to call it. That's not equity. We need to stick to every student. Remember what that guest said in the beginning this morning about his definition of equity. It's giving everybody what they need to succeed, not just a few to try out something.
keeping track of.
I'm doing the best I can. So you guys have to like make noise over here if I can't see you.
This is Laura Lee, Van Almen Kluka, Taconican Green School District. I was very excited when we were first presented with this resolution at our regional meeting. I've had concerns regarding the consolidation. Our best example being that Maine, within 2 years of their consolidation process, had charter schools and had not had charter school law previously. We are now the last state who does not have charter schools. I see this as our best way of preventing the people who would like to privatize our public schools from really getting a foothold in that direction. This provides us an opportunity to innovate wherever it is needed, so that because we know that things are not one size fits all, this provides us an opportunity to try new things and innovate to achieve our world-class educational goals.
Mark Thinking from Essex, Westford. I think we should remember that these resolutions came out of a discussion how we could do cost containment. We're not doing a very good job with cost containment in the state. And if we don't try new things, I think we're not going to move forward. I think this is about allowing districts to try things, and if they work, to replicate them across the state. So I don't see it long-term as providing a difference in equity.
My name is David Clark. I'm a member of Fellows Falls Union High School District. I represent Westminster on that board. And I've made the rounds of the towns in the Wyndham Northeast Supervised Union, Athens, Grafton, Rockingham, and Westminster, because I was tasked with the responsibility to vote for the four entities, probably because I know how to get here. And it was a very interesting thing because I have come here with instructions to vote against all of the resolutions. And the rationale for that was because, I'll use the crude language here, that all of these resolutions delegitimize, defund, and discredit school districts. And I know that's an awful mouthful to be laying out here. But the issue is that we will find that there will be repeated requests to create study committees and state commissions and a whole raft of interventions between the delivery of education and the school boards tasked with delivering that education. I mentioned the fact that I was given the no signal on all 6 of these, and what was most interesting to me was that this was also the position that our superintendent of schools, Chris Kibbe, took, and then I think pretty closely aligned with many of the views of the VSBA. So you've already heard from a couple of speakers here about what some of the potential consequences of this proposed resolution would be in terms of creating this equity. And I'm simply going to urge the Assembly to vote this one and the 5 to come after it down.
Melanie Virgilio from Sunderland. You know, again, I hear the discussion about equity, and I know that one of the things for our district, and probably for many districts, is that when we are looking to educate all of our students, and we have independent schools that are allowed to do things that we are not allowed to do, that's inequitable. There are kids that are getting access to professionals, access to a variety of things that we just can't provide at the public level because our hands are tied. And I think, you know, if we can't figure out a way to put ourselves on an even playing field, and then the state, you know, potentially takes away our public funded dollars to go there, you know, we're creating more inequities, I think, if we don't allow for us to start working through these systems and getting more creative. And I think it's absolutely necessary to give us a little more freedom. And I think the state will continue to bind our hands if we don't get ahead of it and require and request that we get an opportunity to start shifting things up a little bit at the public level so we can compete against the private and independent schools.
More hands?
My name is Mark Porter from Burlington. So no to any of these is really your choice. What I don't want, what I would hope.
You couldn't hear me like this?
What's coming out? What I would hope is that everybody would consider each one of them. We have to turn the course of education in Vermont. We can brag about graduation rates. We can brag about supposedly closing the achievement gap. We're not. We can brag about all these wonderful things. We can brag about local control. When it comes down to it, we have an aging population, shortchanging of the student population, which is going the other way. I don't want to turn into a Florida. I don't want to turn into a place where everybody's paying $6,000 in property taxes because there's no kids in the schools. Because all those other families left. So I just ask you just to, if you don't like this one, say no. If you don't like 3 of them, say no. But consider first and foremost the fact that Vermont can't wait. If we're gonna pass the buck, if we're gonna look at this 10 years from now and say we had an opportunity to do, this one here was years ago. If we're gonna pass the buck again, then shame on us. Or just, think thoughtfully, make your own decision that's good for your district, but also understand that we have to change the course of things.
Any further comments?